Wednesday evening. Whew. It's been a long day. What's new, everybody? If you're on here, say hello. Oh, all right. I'm going to go through announcements. Ready? Boink. Like and share. Whoop. Prayer requests in the comments. And if something good's happening, I know the Beckers had a baby. So congratulations there. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, here we go. Ready? Watch the bottom of your screen, ladies and gentlemen. Anthony Milas. Oh, let me give you a little visual. Anthony Milas will be here this Sunday, and I swear to you, you're going to want to invite somebody to come with you here to church, all right? He's just a good man. He's a great speaker. I hope he doesn't see this, but because that would ruin our relationship. I'm going to be speaking. I'll be out of town. I'll be in Haverhill, Massachusetts at Brookridge Community Church, where Russ Greenwood III is the pastor, another good friend of mine. Just a good brother in Christ. And Anthony will be here. And Russ has already started his weekend of preaching. And so I wish him well and pray for him. He's doing at least 5 services. Plus, he did one today to an empty room, which I promise you, trust me, that's a hard thing to do. And they pre-record it because they have an iCampus as well. So be in prayer for this Sunday. Again, be in prayer for our church because Anthony will be here unsupervised by me. But again, I'm very protective of my pulpit, and I am quite secure. Matter of fact, he's already sent me these are his verses he'll be using. And let's see, I scribbled on it because if it's a piece of paper here, I doodle. Anyway, but I have his verses. I have to put them in the machine so they'll be ready for him. And this prop that he's bringing confuses me a little bit, but hey, we'll see how that goes. And so pray for me while I'm away representing our church at another church, and I love that. Today I got to speak at another missions project of our church, which is Boston Baptist College, and I spoke to the students there and today, and I had a good time. I sat with some of them at lunch, and we just talked, and I think there's some good kids coming out of there. Let's see. So that's Anthony. I'm going to leave that on there for a second. Shine Conference is coming up May 11th to the 13th. Last I heard, there are 18 ladies going, which is outstanding for our church. 18 ladies in between there. And yes, Mother's Day weekend. It'll be okay. Come home and rest up on Mother's Day. That's perfect, actually. And so we'll be ready for you. We got some plans for the moms here at our church. And Warriors Conference is coming up. And I am a little humbled that there was only 15 men. But I guess, whatever. Warriors Conference, 15 men. We have 3 condos already rented, and we have to kind of pay for those, but otherwise we're in good company. There's some great, great men going to that. Also be in prayer. I didn't put it on here, but tomorrow, Tyler and Sarah Prince will be approved as missionaries in Missouri. And so some of the princes have gone out there. Some of the family have gone out there to see that. And they're sending church, which is Sarah's dad, Billy Newman. They're all there just being part of that. So be in prayer for that tomorrow. If you get a chance, think about them. And that's a big deal. That's a big deal. So that's a Warriors Conference. I think Tyler's actually coming to our Warriors Conference with us. So he's part of that 15. And then, of course, I figured I'll shoot that on their Dad Fest. If Mother's Day is on there, Dad Fest is coming up in June. I think some things will hopefully slow down. I got to get some things together that we'll do during the summer as a church, but there we go. All right. And so did I mention Anthony Miles is coming? And you're going to be praying about that and inviting, because that would be awesome. Can't say enough about him. Boop. All right. Oh, let's see what you're saying behind my back. There it is. Andrea's here. Boop, boop, boop. Good evening. Hello, Lee. Miles. I got to find that chant. Well, he chanted Spice when I visited one time years ago. Hey, Dawn. And don't forget, there it is. Tyler. All right. Well, I'm going to start in. We're going to finish Obadiah. This is our second week. It's a 1-chapter book, and I just split it into 2 because, again, on Wednesday nights, it's a little faster pace for me, and I try to honor your time because I know it's Wednesday evening. It is hump day, I get it. I do. And frankly, I want to go home and have dinner. So, but I do love this time we have together, and I appreciate all the numbers and the people liking and sharing and just tuning in. And I do appreciate that. I really do. All right. So Obadiah. We looked at Obadiah. Oh, wait a minute. Let me get rid of that. Let me get this up there. Boink. I gotta get my Bible up there. There's too many buttons to push. There it is. That's yours, and mine popped up too. Beautiful dinner. Yes, Sandy, dinner. That's the thing you eat. It's like lunch, but in the evening. As my father would say, supper. Anyway. Hi, Sandy. All right. So, Obadiah, I'm going to start here in verse 15 because what this book is about is it's a little precursor to Babylon's coming. We know Babylon's going to destroy everything as far as Jerusalem goes and the walls and all that. And then they're going to take Judah captive. Now, while they're being beat up, this is actually during the time that Babylon comes in, and they're beating them up. The soldiers are killing people. They're burning things. They're just ravaging the city. And the problem is, if you remember last week, that Edom is like urging them on. Remember some of the things we looked at? Let me look at the list last week. Now, Edom is the descendants of Esau. Israel is obviously the descendants, and Judah are the descendants of Jacob. And Jacob and Esau were brothers, twins even. And if you don't know that story, you need to look that up in Genesis. But let's see. Oh, look at, I have so many pages of notes for one chapter. It's amazing. All right, they were filled with pride in verses 3 and 4. They were aligning themselves up. Be careful who we align ourselves up and who we're trusting in. And so they were trying to align themselves up with Babylon. And we're going to see in a second, actually right here in verse 15. It's right here on the screen. Watch this. The day of the Lord is near when I, the Lord, will judge the godless nations. As you have done to Israel, so it will be done to you. And so you're choosing the wrong side. They were violent. They were stopping people from exiting and getting away. Let's see what else we got. And here's one that's kind of interesting. They were rejoicing and like singing and cheering on Babylon and like smiling about it. But in the New Testament, aren't we supposed to pray for our enemies? Anyway, and then they were looting. They were taking stuff. That's the spoils of war. And hindering the Jews who were escaping and actually capturing them and bringing them to the Babylonians. And then they had a drunken celebration with the wine of Israel because they wouldn't be needing it anymore. And eventually they would reap what they sow, which is Galatians 6:7. Now, we stopped here. Well, we didn't stop here, actually. We stopped in verse 16. So let's go ahead and read in verse 15. The day is near when I, the Lord, will judge all the godless nations. And as you have done to Israel, so it will be done to you. All your evil deeds will fall back on your own heads. Just as you have swallowed up my people on my holy mountain, so you and the surrounding nations will be swallowed. The punishment I pour out on you, yes, all you nations will drink and stagger and disappear from history. Now, if you remember, Judah's going to get captured by Babylon, and we know that because of the book of Daniel. Daniel was written during the captivity in Babylon, but that only lasted 70 years because of some disobedience. And actually, they owed them they owed God, I think it was 10 Sabbath years, which added up to 70 years. He said, you owed it to me. You didn't obey the law that I'd laid down for you. And so I'll get it done, even if I have to go around you and get you out of the way for 70 years. And so 70 years, they come back. They get to survive. You've heard of Israel to this day. But Edom, not so much. I mean, they're going to get even more whooped because what blossoms from some of this and some of the story of, and I never realized this when I was a young Christian, but the Old Testament's really just a story of a family. You have Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and all these other stories that come out of those. And so that part was Edom. They're going to get, God promises, listen, there's going to come a day when he's going to judge all the other nations that were giving Israel a hard time. And so picking up in verse 17, it says, but Jerusalem, here is obviously we are at the turning point of this book, and this is going to be different. Now, again, it's Edom and Israel, or the descendants of Esau and the descendants of Jacob. So now you have two brothers going at it, which developed into two nations going at it, and they should have celebrated family. And so, but Jerusalem will become a refuge for those who escape. It will be a holy place, and the people of Israel will come back. This is the promise. Again, look for the grace. You're going to come back. God does. He disciplines his children. And according to the New Testament, he does that so we know that we're not illegitimate. We're actually his. And he only kind of corrects his kids. Did you notice the other kids who aren't his in Edom? Well, then they're not coming back. They'll disappear from history, and they will. All right, but Jerusalem will become a refuge for those who escape, and it will be a holy place. And the people of Israel will come back to reclaim their inheritance. And the people of Israel will be a raging fire, and Edom a field of dry stubble. And the descendants of Joseph, notice the change here, the descendants of Joseph will be a flame roaring across the field, devouring everything. There will be no survivors in Edom. I, the Lord, have spoken. So how many different ways can he send and say, you guys don't get a future? You just don't. Then my people living in Negev will occupy the mountains of Edom. Those living in the foothills of Judah will possess the Philistines' plains and take over the fields of Ephraim and Samaria, and the people of Benjamin will occupy the land of Gilead, and the exiles of Israel will return to the land and occupy the Phoenicians' coast as far as Zareph. That's not even King James. And the captives from Jerusalem's exile in the north will return home and resettle the town of Negev. Those who have rescued will go up to Mount Zion in Jerusalem to rule over the mountains of Edom, and the Lord himself will be king. So I want you to know this one short letter, this 21 verses, right? 21 verses? Yes. 21 verses. It's, again, written in, there's going to be a short-term prophecy here and then a longer-term prophecy here. Because out of this family dynamic, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, come not only two brothers, two nations, but they also picture the world and God's people, the spirit and the flesh. And so that's what's going to happen here. And then we'll see that even to this day, some of the ramifications from these peoples are still happening today. And it's amazing. But it's not over. But eventually, God will come back, Jesus will return, and there will be judgment about it. I was just watching my friend Russ Greenwood, his live, and he was making mention that a lot of churches, we don't really talk about Jesus coming back. And it's, if I remember what he said there were 8 times more references to Jesus' second coming than there was to his first coming. And that's something. And he's right. I don't think I know a lot of churches that do that, but I'm fascinated by it, and not to the point that it's addicting. I know some people that you're just not earthly good now. You're so involved in it. But be careful. It is not for information. It is for motivation, because we're running out of time. And I think we're running out of time because I've said this, well, I think probably every preacher has said this, but how much weirder can the world get? How much weirder can it get? I'm amazed at what's going on. I talked to some young people today at the college, and I just said, I'm sorry, if you told me 10 years ago that we'd be here as a nation, as a global society, in some of the things that we think we can accomplish just by mere thought, what we think is okay. I'm not being particular because I don't want to offend anybody. But the fact is, it's weird out there. And I know that the Bible says that the God of this world has blinded their minds lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ shine unto them. But wow, I never dreamed. And I've always used the illustration. I used it today when I was speaking in chapel. Is if you told me when I was a kid, if I told my friends, you know what, I'm going to grow up and I'm going to bottle water and sell it to people and make billions, they would have laughed at me. But looky where we are. All right. I think there's several cases just around the church of bottled water. And we would have thought, why? I can just turn on the faucet and get it. But that's nothing compared to what we've become. And so I believe Jesus is coming. I don't know how much weirder it can get. And the more we have grandchildren, the more concerned I become. And because my kids are saved and I know it. And I'm just going to, again, put Jesus on display for my granddaughters and hope that we can lead them to Jesus. Because, again, it's for motivation. And I think we're on the last lap. All right. So Verse 17 shows us the turning point. Now we're going to talk about Israel, and they are going to go in because God promised them and over again warned them about Babylon. And again, if you were with us during, I think it was Isaiah, where Isaiah kept saying, hey, the Lord keeps telling me to tell you this, that he's going to hit you with something. You're not listening, you're not obeying, you're not applying the word of God. And so he's going to get over here and he's going to take Babylon to take you captive for a little bit. And they just kind of went, and I ran into that as in the Greek, in the Hebrew. But when and I forget what chapter it was, but when Babylon started to be rough with Israel, they go to Isaiah. The Israelites go to Isaiah and say, hey, can you pray to God? The Babylons are bothering us. You got to be kidding. And I wish that was funny, but if you're in the ministry, you can preach until you're blue in the face and no one hears what you said. It's crazy. I'll bet money Anthony Miles will come on Sunday. He'll say something very profound and you'll say, wow, that was amazing. And it's probably something I said last week. I swear to you that's true. Sometimes it just takes a different voice and you just got to suck that up as a pastor. God promises deliverance and cleansing for Israel. So Israel's future is pretty sweet. I mean, they have to go through the captivity, no doubt about it. They've sinned. They're still going to be brought to the woodshed, if you will. Oh, Sandy said dinner was yummy. I didn't miss dinner. She'll take care of me. Israel had sinned and the temple was destroyed, but God would cleanse and restore the house of Jacob. And we saw that. The house of Jacob, because this is important. The people of Israel. Now notice this. The people of Israel, the Edom fields will be dry stubble, and the descendants of Joseph, the people of Israel, which would be Jacob, and the descendants of Joseph, which would be Joseph. All right, so let me get there. I'm sorry, I'm going ahead. But verse 18, there's a reunion. Well, that's what I'm talking about right there. There's some kind of reunion. Now, again, there's a short-term prophecy here. After the 70 years, there's going to be a reunion. But when Jesus comes back, there's going to be a reunion, the likes of which we have never seen. As a matter of fact, I don't know how it's going to take God and his omnipotence and his omniscience to figure out who's in what tribe, because I don't think anybody really knows what tribe of Israel they belong to. And so notice the reunion, the people of Israel and the descendants of Joseph. And then let's see, there's a couple of others in here, isn't there? Like Gilead. Well, that's another thing we're going to look at in a second. Verse 19, the day will come when Israel will possess their possessions again. I'm not sure, but I think it alludes to, notice here's the reunion in verse 18. Can you see my cursor? Roaring across the field, devouring everything. There'll be no survivors. I, the Lord, have spoken. So do you realize that's a promise? That's not one of the promises you put on a t-shirt, especially if you're an Edomite. But verse 19, then my people, God speaking, living in Negev, will occupy the mountains of it. Not only will you be gone, we're going to take your stuff. And those living in the foothills of Judah will possess the Philistines' land. All these Gentile nations. This is long-term prophecy. He's going to take care of all the Gentile nations that were on the wrong side of Israel. Remember the covenant that God made with Abraham, Father Abraham. He said, I will bless them that bless you, and I will curse them that curse you. And if you want to know how close we are to Jesus coming again, keep a look at our government and see how we as a country are treating Israel. Once we get on the wrong side of that, we have always been, so far in my history, on the right side, we are blessing Israel. And if we ever decide, you know what, we're not going to be on your team anymore, that means we're not God's team anymore. Be really, really careful. Oh, all right. So those living, if you read verse 19, see how it's in Judah. So Philistines, we're going to take their stuff. Ephraim and Samaria, we're going to go back into there and we're going to figure out this civil war thing, because remember, Israel and Judah, and Israel really got beat up, where Judah is the main character for a little bit, especially in the book of Daniel. And the people of Benjamin will occupy the land of Gilead. So we're going to spread out. And the great part about this is, I know this is a long distance prophecy, is because if you look on a map and see the land that Israel occupies, and you read the Old Testament of the land that God promised them, it's much, much more massive than what you see on the map today. And so when Jesus comes back, not only will he sit on the throne of his father David, he's going to give all the land that was actually promised to them so many years ago, because my God, who cannot lie, promised them. And I told you, the book of Revelation is a Jewish book, and he's going to fulfill those promises. And when Jesus comes back, I believe the church is gone. And so he's going to be dealing with Israel primarily once again, because he made promises and he will keep promises. But again, I know it's been 1,000 years, but when you're timeless like God, I can't even imagine what is that like. Not being bound by time. Well, none of us actually can figure that out. I mean, I'm a big Star Trek fan. I don't get that. And someone said to me the other day, I think I shared this with you, and it made my head hurt, is when I die and go to heaven and I'm in the presence of God and he's timeless, am I still bound by time? And if I'm not bound by time, will you already be there? Did that hurt your head too? Anyway. All right. So there's what time we got? I got it. Great way to end the book. He ends here. Let's see, the exile, and then there's the possessions, and then some are returned to them. Verse 21, those who have been rescued will go up to Mount Zion in Jerusalem to rule over the nations, the mountains of Edom, and the Lord himself will be king. The Lord, do you see the far-reaching prophecy? When Jesus comes back, he will be king. He will walk through the eastern gate. He will sit down on the throne of his father David, and from there he will rule over river, sea, and shore by waving his scepter. But the great part is we'll finally have a government we trust completely and can, because he is the Lord forevermore. All right. So they'll be cleansed, forgiven, and the kingdom will be established. Esau and Jacob stand for more than brothers and nations. They represent two opposing forces, the flesh and the spirit. I think I told you that when we read this for first time. Edom, when we come across Edom, I think the world. And when I think of Israel, I think of God's people. And so they were cleansed. God would choose Jacob, who would be known as, the God. He would refer to himself, God would, as the God of Jacob. God's grace. If you're looking for God's grace with me, there it is. Because Jacob means trickster. He was a liar. He was sneaky. He was shifty. And it says God chose him and rejected Esau. Now, Esau was supposed to be the one, if in a fleshly perspective, you would have chose Esau. We would have chose Esau because he's attractive. He's a hunter. He's very man. And then the other one was sneaky, if you know that part of the story. And who does God choose? He chooses Jacob, which shows God's grace. God's grace is not by merit. It is by grace and grace alone. I wish I'd said that a couple of weeks ago. Jacob's father, the tribe of Israel. God gave Jacob the covenant and the promise, not Esau. Jacob represents the child of God, chosen by God's grace. I love this description. I stole this. Jacob represents the child of God, chosen by God's grace, often sinning and failing, but ultimately gaining the inheritance. Does that not describe Christians today? And if you don't think it does, you don't appreciate God's grace, because that's where we are. We're often sinning, often failing, but ultimately gaining the inheritance. All right. So Esau pictures the flesh, attractive, powerful, proud, grasping, rebellious, always seeming to be on the winning side. And on those people, he's going to pronounce like final judgment. The Israelites, they get corrected. Edom, you're getting judged. See the difference? 5 years later from this point, Edom will fall into the Babylonians themselves. They'll be taken over by Babylon too, after trying to align themselves. Again, how many times in these Old Testament studies that we've done together on Coffee with Pastor is be careful who you align yourself with, especially if the Bible's real clear. Don't align yourself with Egypt. Well, I think God's a great... Oh my goodness, be careful. And when I think aligning ourselves, I'm thinking political parties. I'm thinking all kinds of stuff like that. So I think maybe we should align ourselves with Jesus first and then do what we can as Americans later. So where is Edom today? Well, I think they've been pretty much wiped out. They struggle between the two runs. All through, actually Edom and Israel, they have conflict all the way through the Old Testament. And actually into the New Testament. This is interesting. As I was reading and getting ready for tonight, this is interesting because the Edomites, they produced Herods. Now, if you remember, Herods were Edomites, And one was responsible for the slaughter of the innocent when trying to destroy Jesus's birth. Remember, the wise men went home another way after they found the Lord. And then Herod said, you know what? Let's just go in there and kill 2 to 4 year olds. Just wipe them out. He was an Edomite. Another Herod murdered John the Baptist, beheaded him. Another one kills James, the brother of Jesus. The struggle between Israel and the Arabs is continuation of this relationship. Remember, Abraham and Sarah decided to speed up God's plan, and Hagar and Abraham had a child, and they rejected it and left him out in the field. But God, again, in his grace, said, okay, well, that's where the Arabian people came from in that line. So flesh versus spirit, pride versus submission, man's ways versus God's ways. The struggle will go on until Jesus returns. And do you see it in the news? It's crazy what's going on. I saw like Syria is just almost a wasteland, and you can watch as Israel gets bombed and then bombs other people back. And isn't it amazing? I think I'm right when I say this, that there's a country, Israel, the size of like Rhode Island. How many bombings would that take? But yet they're still here because God's hands on them. He's made promises. And the Gentile nations will be called to account for the way they treated Israel. I will bless them that bless you, and I will curse them that curse you. And may I add with the final thought on this chapter, and the Lord himself will be king. And there's no going around that. I am looking forward to some of this stuff because I believe I'm on the right side of the equation of all this. So, all right, with that, we have finished Obadiah, all 21 verses. Let me see what you got in here. Sandy said dinner was good. Thank you, Sandy. Always encouraging. Hello, Stephen. I hope you're feeling better. Shannon, hello. And Russ was backing me up. Appreciate that. You did say 8 times, didn't you? You shouldn't have. You should have glued eyes on a rock and sold those. Well, I think I remember the pet rock. That's how old I am. Lost in Space. No, you know what? This is Inside the Flying Sub, one of my favorite backgrounds. Inside the Flying Sub, from Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. See in the background there, the wetsuits. Uptime. Or as theologians say, rapture, but okay. Thank you for the French voice. Ooh, man. Every week is a tough gig. I hear that. That is true. I believe that with all my heart. I don't know. I really think I have reasons to think what I think, but it's all guesses, so I won't share them with you. But I really think we're on the last lap. I think we might see the return of Jesus, if not in my lifetime, I would think in my kid's lifetime. I really do think that, and with all confidence, because for this book to be written, here's my Bible, for this book to be written so long ago, and now just things are happening now that were written so long ago, and it's not like Nostradamus that if you say this and think this way, that it could mean no. There's real things that just saying no, you're nuts. You're nuts. And can I point out again, one more time, a lot of the signs of Jesus coming again in the book of Revelation are environmental. Keep your eye on the sky. I think it's fascinating. I found my cousin's Facebook page. All I can say is she's so confused. She has the wrong idea of things. Yeah, there's a lot of people. There's the sin nature inside us. If we admit Jesus is Lord, that means we're responsible to him. And people will rather believe in some of the craziest things than submit to his lordship. And I find a lot of comfort in the fact that he is all-powerful. He's going to be, the Lord himself will be king, was our last phrase tonight. And what's great is he likes me. He likes me. I love that. Last lap. Yes, sir. All right. Pray for my friend Russ as he runs the gauntlet there at Granite for doing 5 services, I think it was. And I know he's already done one today. So he's taped his. I'm ready. I'll be putting the finishing touches on, and I'm going to send Russ. I'll send you my verses by the end of tomorrow, most likely. And I have Anthony's verses, so this big switch up is ready. All right, guys, it is 8 o'clock straight up. Love you for filling my screen with all of you and talking with you. Musical Chairs Sunday. That's right. When all the I'm afraid I'm going to be the end. I'll end up without the chair. That's what You're welcome, Lee. Thank you for coming. And again, please be praying for Bay State. Be inviting. It's well worth it. You want to hear your friends to hear the gospel in a new voice and a fresh voice from our stage. This is your opportunity. I trust Anthony with all my heart and my pulpit, and I know how pastors are, and I know Russ is very protective of his pulpit, so I am very honored to be invited. So thank you, Browns, for coming. And well, there it is. Someone had to say it. We'll miss you, Brian. I appreciate that, Evan. I will be back, and I will be thinking of you guys the whole time, I promise. And again, I think of me representing you guys as I go and do this. So I just love it. I think it's a great part of ministry. So be in prayer for all three of us, if you would, and I'd appreciate it. Love you guys. Have a good one. Bye.